Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, owner of Fearless Financial Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us at Fearless Females again. If you don't mind liking or subscribing or giving us a shout out, linking, sharing with all your friends, I don't know, maybe you could make a little song about fearless females and sing it to people. But if you don't mind helping me get the message out there, I love these stories of these incredible women. And speaking of incredible women, we have Stacie Selise with us today, and she is just amazing. She was in charge of a really large team at a really young age. And I think that she had two parts of the interview that I thought were kind of funny. One of them was, she said, I was scared I'd be seen as too much or even not enough, or sometimes both on the same day. And I just could relate so much to being like, there are those days where you're like, maybe I'm too much, maybe I'm not enough, maybe I'm both, maybe and you just want to go home and hide under your covers after the day is over. So I get that. You get in your head and you just have to kind of come out of it and realize what an amazing woman you are, putting good things into this world. And I wish that for everybody. But that made me chuckle a little bit. And this is the other one. She says, hard work matters, but if you're not visible, you'll stay invisible. And I cannot emphasize enough how true that is. You should work hard. You should show up, be present, be kind, work really hard. But you know what, ladies? You should also show up and toot your own horn just a little bit. Say, hey, I did a great job at this. Do you remember that? And keep a list of the accomplishments that you had and that you've done. Because when it comes time for annual reviews, I guarantee you they don't remember how awesome you are. I had one guest not too long ago that talked about redoing their resume and just realizing how much they had accomplished. Ladies, you really are truly outstanding. Toot your own horn. Tell people how cool you are. I love that Stacie brought that up. Let's listen to all the other cool things she has to tell us. So we are here today with Stacie Selise Shannon. She is the Executive Leadership Strategist and CEO for the Stacie Selise Group. And I am so excited to have you here with us and share your story, Stacie. Thank you for making the time for us.
Thank you so much for having me, Lorie. And thank you to the Fearless Females listeners.
So my first question is always, I'm a reader. I love it. I love everything about it. Tell me what your favorite book is.
Well, Lorie, I have a lot of favorite books. I am an avid reader, hence my bookshelf behind me with a ton of books on it. But I will say one of my favorite books from this year has been We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rogers. I don't know if you've heard of it, but that book gave me permission to really just dream even bigger. And, it really inspires women specifically to build wealth on their own terms, not by someone else's playbook. So it's a power move for anyone who's ready to own their seat at the table or build a new table entirely.
I love that idea. I missed that. So I'm going to add that to my reading list. But it sounds like a lot of times when you're writing for women, a lot of times it feels like we shouldn't want more money. That's not our thing, not our lane. And
Right.
And I'm like, we're building businesses. We're building multi-million-dollar businesses, just the same as our counterparts are. We do want the money.
That's right. Yeah. And we deserve it. We deserve it. So we can't be afraid to ask, and we can't be afraid to build wealth on our own terms as well. So that's why I love the book so much. It's actually really good.
Good. Well, I'll put that in. Thank you for that. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your journey. How did you get started? Where are you at today? What do you do? Tell me about that.
Absolutely. So I actually started as an in-store customer service rep, literally fixing phones, working in the front of the store, and worked my way up to vice president of the same Fortune 20 company that I started off at. And, I didn't take the straight path. I really took the stairs is what I like to tell a lot of people. And I did it with purpose. I did it with heart, and I did it with grit. After climbing the ladder, I realized I really wanted to build my own, which is why I'm here today as an executive leadership strategist and as the CEO and founder of the Stacie Selise Group, because I really wanted to create a brand and a movement that empowers leaders to show up boldly and own their influence. And I really wanted to represent all of the underrepresented voices and get them a seat at the table as well.
So you didn't go to school thinking I'm gonna work for a mobile phone company in the front of the store, right? So
No, not at all. Not at all. And, I said, hey, I just need a way to help pay for school and pay for some of these bills and expenses. And it actually ended up turning into being one of my greatest careers. Yeah.
And we had chatted before, you were in charge of quite a large team at that company too, right?
Yeah, 2,800 employees for the Atlantic North market that I was covering from Maine to Virginia, so all the states in between. And I actually moved around with the company too. So I spent some time in the Carolinas covering parts of Charlotte, North Carolina, and parts of South Carolina. And then I moved over to Chicago, Illinois, and covered the downtown Chicago area, the burbs, and also northern Indiana. Yeah, so very different, but it was great experiences.
So, Stacie, I'm going to say for those of us who are just listening, you're not old. You are young. Like, you went up in those ranks and got in charge of a really large team, really young.
Yeah. And that's part of the story. That's part of the journey. I actually moved up pretty quickly in comparison to a lot of other executive leaders in the company. And at the time, I was one of the youngest vice presidents for the company in any of the units that we had. So it was quite the accomplishment, a lot of responsibility at a young age, but that's where you can't let your age be, a barrier, right? As long as you know your stuff and you earn that seat at the table, your opinion and thoughts are just as valid as anyone else's. Yeah.
And so what was it? You just woke up one morning and you're like, oh my gosh, I know what I'm meant to do. I need to take this other track. Or what made you change?
I got to a point where I said, I want to have a much bigger impact. And I know leading a team of 2,800 employees directly and indirectly is a huge impact, right? But I did notice that one, there weren't a lot of women in a lot of the higher positions, in the executive suite, and there weren't a lot of women of color. And so for me, I knew that my impact and my mission was a lot bigger than just that. And you always want to work for yourself and build out your own dream. And my dream is to really impact other women and just professionals in general to get them to those higher positions because they can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I know that we've chatted before and we have just a real synergy on that. Like, women can do it. We can do it. We are amazing. We just don't know how amazing we are sometimes.
That's right. And sometimes you just need that one person to believe in you, right? And so, yeah, that's what I'm looking to continue to do.
So what is, looking kind of back along your journey, is there an investment that you've made in yourself that has just been transformational? Like you wouldn't be where you're at today if you hadn't done that.
I know this is going to sound pretty simple in terms of my answer, but it really is the best investment in my opinion. And that is betting on myself. Mm-hmm. No fancy program, no retreat really beats the decision to trust your own power. So my turning point was really when I said, I'm done playing small and shrinking in these spaces to make everybody else feel comfortable. So for me, that's when I realized success really isn't just about titles. It's about owning your story and really leading with integrity and just showing up as who you are, as the unique individual that you are, because we are all multidimensional and we have so much to offer. We just cannot shrink in these spaces. And so that has been the best investment for me.
It's so interesting when you talk about like shrinking in those spaces, being small, maybe not being authentic. I found that was kind of along my journey. That was one of the things that I struggled with is I felt like everybody else in financial services did it one way and it just didn't fit me. It didn't feel right to me. And, but every voice was telling me you have to do it this way or it doesn't work. Yeah. So how did you figure out that you needed a bigger space, a bigger stage and be able to do that?
Yeah, again, for me, it was just about really having that human first mentality that I always take into everything that I do. And, I said, if I could show up the way that I've been showing up, being one of the top performers, my teams, we were winning all of these different awards. If I could do that for this particular company, I could do this for myself and other people who are looking to make it into some of these Fortune 500 companies or just show up stronger, daily within their 9 to 5 jobs that they have. And so for me, it was about really just making sure that I could really impact other folks as well and not just those within the realm that I was in. And the only way for me to do that is, one, be able to have the time to dedicate to that and that solely. And for me, that was really creating the Stacie Selise Group and the Stacie Selise brand overall.
Mm-hmm. And how old were you when you made that switch and that change?
Yeah, so I was 34. Yeah. 34.
So still pretty young, a very successful career, but still pretty young to be. This is a question that I usually ask later on. So we'll kind of go to it now. Was it scary? Like, was there something that really scared you when you started this?
Yeah. So I was 32. Let me say that 32 when I assumed the role of vice president. I was 34 when I transitioned out. But yeah, so I would say that I was scared that I'd be seen as too much or sometimes not even enough, right? And sometimes both on the same day. So, I've learned that the same things people say are too much about you are actually your superpowers. Those are the things that are your superpowers. So today I'm not really scared anymore at all. I own my too muchness like a badge of honor now. So yeah, it is a very scary thing in the beginning, but you got to own it.
So talk about that too much, because I had another guest that kind of delved into that. Like, talk about how that too much showed up, like maybe an example and how you owned that.
Yeah. So one thing, so I have a 4S framework by Stacie Selise that I always talk about. It's 4 key pillars, but I'll hit on one of them right now, and it's called strive. And that is where I would always talk about striving for excellence. And so my team knew that in everything that we would do, we would strive for excellence, because when you do that, you would land in a ballpark of perfection. Nothing's perfect, right? But we're going to strive for excellence each and every time. We are going to go out there and be that team that truly is the bar for everyone else. So we don't raise the bar because we are the bar and everyone's looking to us for that inspiration and for that model of how to be and how to, interact and how to perform and execute. And so some people would say, this is a bit much, look at that team over there. Look at how they show up in their suits and they're all dressed to the nines, but we showed up the way we needed to show up so that everyone could take us seriously and know that we were about business. But we still had a very, very team atmosphere, a family culture. We had some of the highest engagement scores when you go back to the Gallup surveys that we used to do quarterly. So all of it was just like, it just showed that not only are we about the results and the excellence that comes along with this, but we create this family culture where we really care about each other. And it's beyond the numbers. Mm-hmm. Some people would think that was a bit much, and we owned it. We owned it and turned it into a positive. And that positive reflected in all of the measurable results as well as the engagement.
I like that. I like that idea of you turned it into a superpower. I always like to talk about people in terms of their superpowers, and rather than hearing, oh, maybe you ought to tone it down, like maybe lower your expectations a little bit, or that, that's asking a lot of people. You kind of leaned into it double hard, and you're like, if they can't lift themselves to this level, because this is the kind of dynamic team we are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's right.
So tell me a little bit, have you ever gotten any really bad advice, Stacie? And did you take the advice? Did you not take the advice? Talk to me about that.
Lorie. Yes. So someone once told me, just keep your head down, work hard, people will notice. And to me, they were absolutely wrong. Hard work matters, but if you're not visible, you'll stay invisible. So let me say that again. If you're not visible, you will stay invisible. So I learned that you really have to advocate for yourself, speak up, and really command the room, even if your voice shakes for the first time, because that's where people really see you showing up as the leader that you need to be and really owning your power. So for me, that advice was not great advice. And you hear it a lot in corporate America. You really do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You do. So what are some ways, because that's something that I always tell women leaders as well. I'm like, toot your own horn, like
Yeah.
speak up, say what you're doing is great. Like maybe shoot your supervisor an email, but what are some of the ways that you have that you tell people to make themselves visible in these spaces?
Yeah. So I always say, if you're in a meeting, don't feel like you have to just soak everything in and not speak up. Like, people want to hear, if you're at the table, they want to hear your opinion on the matter, right? Because you're knowledgeable, you're there for a reason. So don't be quiet, speak up. Now, that's not to say be a talking head and just say whatever comes to mind, right? But if you have valuable input, make sure they hear it, because people need to hear that. The other thing, too, that I always tell people is to keep inventory of everything that you do, because sometimes it's easy to forget some of the things that you're doing day to day because there's so much going on. But keep like a running tally of all the different things that you're doing, even the little things that you think are not the biggest accomplishments. Keep inventory of all of those things, because when it's performance appraisal time and all these different things, you're going to be racking your brain and remember everything you did for the year. But if you were keeping track of it and keeping inventory, then it won't be that hard. So that's what I
Yeah.
always tell people. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea too. And I encourage that. I'm like, keep a running list of the things, because
Mhm.
inevitably it comes time for your annual review, and there are still
Yeah.
companies that do those annual reviews, and they're like,
Mhm.
okay, what has Lorie done in the last 2 weeks that has been amazing? And if it's nothing, if Lorie hasn't done anything in the last 2 weeks, they don't remember anything at all. So you've
Right.
got to show, hey, do you remember, like, way back in January I did this, and then in February I did this amazing thing? And
That's right. That's why you got to keep that running list.
what about a situation that you wish, like, knowing what you know now, you kind of wish you could go back and do it differently? Is there something that you can think of that you would have done differently, and how?
I would say, I feel like I once waited too long to really step into my power because I was worried about how it would look to everyone else. So I realized in the end that the only one judging me was really me. So that taught me to really trust my gut and move faster, because sometimes you have to move a bit faster, especially in corporate America. Things are changing every single day. And a lot of times you're only as good as today. So I would trust my gut and just really move faster. And, I always remember that you don't need everyone's approval to do what's best
Mhm.
for you. So, if I could have made it easier, or what would have made that easier, it would have been giving myself permission to just be bold from day one and not wait for everyone else's approval. And I think that's one thing that I could share with everyone else as well, because a lot of times we face that and those obstacles where we're feeling like we got to wait for approval and wait for permission. I always say, ask for forgiveness, do what it is that you need to do, and be bold and own
Mhm.
that power. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's sometimes it's harder when you're younger or less sure of yourself
Yeah.
to be in that space where you're like, I have good ideas. Well, wait, do I really have good ideas? Maybe I don't have good ideas.
Yeah. And I think that's where the power of mentorship comes from, Lorie. It is important for everyone to have a mentor. That doesn't mean that it has to be someone older than you or what have you. It could just be someone who's doing something well, something that you may want to get into one day, or you've just, witnessed them in leadership or whatever it is that they're doing. And you just reach out to them and ask them to be a mentor to you, because there's so much that you can learn, and there's a lot of confidence that you can build through that mentor mentee relationship as well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I like how you pointed out too that, like, it doesn't have to be like, oh, I want her job, or I want to do everything that she does. Like, maybe it's just a piece. Maybe it's public speaking, someone that really stands out in public speaking, or really stands out in sales.
Right.
And you're like, oh, I would really like to know how she does this one thing. I wonder if she would be willing to help.
Absolutely. And what is the worst thing anyone could ever say? No, that's okay. But don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help.
Yeah. And then that that is something that you're interested in. You can start looking around for another, another person that does that really well that might be willing to share their information. I really haven't found that a lot of times the mentors and those we want to give back. We're on the last half of our career, and we want to help and grow these teams and make them just a little bit better.
That's right. Yeah, I agree.
What if you could go back, Stacie, and you could talk to yourself really younger at this beginning of your journey, like 20, 21, 22, what advice would you give you specifically?
Yeah, I would say, and this is very similar to some of the other things that I was just mentioning, but don't play small to make other people comfortable. I did that a lot earlier in my career. One, because I just didn't think that I was qualified enough to do certain things or make certain decisions. So, I would just say, don't play small to make other people comfortable. You're really allowed to take up space and do it with style and do it with grace and do it with all of the power and uniqueness you have in you. And so that's what I would tell my younger self.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that don't make yourself smaller to make somebody else feel bigger.
That's right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like that. What about unique challenges because you were a woman? Did you face any of those?
Yeah. I would say two things, right? So as a Black woman, I had to deal with being underestimated twice. One, for my skin color, and two, for my gender. Mm-hmm. So really balancing the expectations and reality for me was tough, but it made me very resilient. So anytime I tell like my full story, my full background of, where I come from and the different things that I've done throughout, this life journey and career journey, I always talk about resilience because, being able to bend but not break is something that has really been a core or the core of my story. I learned to really set my own standards and never let anyone else define my worth. And I think that's important when you think about, unique challenges and that we face as women and sometimes, women of color as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that that I just faced the gender challenge, and that's hard enough sometimes to deal with in certain spaces. And if you're battling a couple of those marks that or things that are difficult to navigate around. Yeah, it makes it extra challenging. Mm-hmm. And you can't really, people can't really say, hey, that doesn't really happen. It does happen.
Every day. It happens every day.
Mm-hmm. So have you learned which battles to pick, or do you, which battles to fight, or do you fight all of them, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, I think there's a way to go about it where, one, you're not making yourself crazy trying to tackle every single thing, right? I think that's just insanity. But there are some non-negotiables you have to have, and there are certain areas that, you have to stand up, and you got to stand up for something, right? And make sure your voice is heard. And that is why I was a huge part of the employee resource groups at my former company as well. So I was a part of all the employee resource groups, quite frankly. And the reason being is because I was leading large teams, and there were team members that identified with all of those employee resource groups. So me being a part of it allowed me the insight and knowledge I needed to know to be able to lead at that level and understand all of my team members as well. So I used to always encourage all of our leaders to join the employee resource groups, because you need to understand the different challenges that your team members are facing and the different dynamics, because you may not always understand on the surface. But when you get a little bit deeper and you're having some of those courageous conversations, that's where you really learn the most about what they're dealing with at home, what they're dealing with, externally outside of the job, because people bring those into work, and it's reality. It's not reality for us to tell people, hey, don't bring that to work.
Yeah.
How do you just turn it off? You can't, it sounds good to say, but the reality is they're going to be thinking about that, So it's important.
Yeah. Or dealing with it. I know that as a young mom, when I had small children that would, be up half the night crying or something like that, you just cannot bring your 100% best self to work the next day.
Yeah.
And I can't just leave it at home. It's affecting me.
Absolutely. And that's why I love the power of having those employee resource groups, because it just gave you that platform to understand everybody and really just know what they're going through. And you had other people who you could relate to, right? They may be going through similar things, but would never hear about it if it wasn't for that safe space and that psychological safety.
That's a really valid point, and kind of interesting that, like, it may not just be another thing to do on your list as a C-suite executive. Like, this is a job skill, something that you need to, because we only have our lens that we're looking through, only me. And I don't know what Stacie's going through or what, Joe is going through.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah.
What are you the most proud of, Stacie?
Yeah, I would say, Lorie, building a brand and a legacy that really reflects, not just who I am, but what I stand for. Seeing other women and professionals really find their power because they saw me step into mine. So for me, that's the real win. Just being able to inspire others to do, not only what I'm doing, but whatever it is that they want to do and whatever they feel empowered to do and passionate about. That's what I'm most proud of.
I think it's so interesting that you were in this really high, important position in your company, and you're like, I need to think bigger. Like, most people would look at that and be like, oh, you were already, really pretty big here. Like, but that you wanted to share that and really grow because you wanted to grow other people in that space, to be that kind of dynamic presence in the inner workforce.
That's right. And we need more women and we need more of us in those spaces. And so that is why the mission is so much bigger than what I was doing. And was I making great money and having access to all these great things? Absolutely. But the mission and purpose is so much bigger than just that. Mm-hmm. We have so much more to do.
I love it.
Yeah.
Any advice for a young lady who's kind of just starting down this path that you're successful at, and you can, look at that in your former role as, as the team of leading a large team, or in your current position, empowering women and helping those executives or, executive leadership strategists. What advice would you give to someone who's just starting down that path?
Yeah, I would say just be unapologetic about your ambition. Don't wait for permission. I know you heard me say before, I ask for forgiveness, but don't wait for permission. And definitely don't let someone else's fears hold you back. Keep showing up, even if you're the only one in the room who believes in your vision, because your future self will thank you for it. So just continue to show up, don't ask for permission, and be unapologetic.
I like that. Mm-hmm. I like the idea too of, Stacie, I love that you mentioned, like, don't ask for permission to think bigger or be bigger or want the world. Sometimes we feel like we should want less or we should be satisfied with less. And I love that you say, don't do that.
No, don't do that at all. I know that could be some traditional ways of thinking, but we are here to challenge the orthodoxies, and we are here to change the game, and we need more change makers.
Absolutely, 100%. I love that, Stacie. Thank you so much for spending this time with us and kind of going through your journey and just giving us some real insight on ideas and things that we can take away. If I have a listener that wants to get in touch with you and just ask you questions or dig deeper, how does she do that?
Absolutely. So she can find me at stacieselise.com. That is Stacie with an IE at the end. And you can find me at Stacie Selise on all social media platforms as well. So I look forward to hearing from some of you. And Lorie, I really enjoyed our conversation today. And thank you for having me a part of Fearless Females.
Thank you so much, Stacie. I appreciate it.